What's up, Spice Heads? Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Availability or High Availability, Semantics Matter, brought to you by ArcServe. Before we get started, I'm going to go through some quick housekeeping items. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded, so keep a lookout for an email from us within a couple of days with the link to check out this awesome webinar on demand. Secondly, there is a Q&A box on your screen. When you submit a question, it will disappear from your box and queue up on our side. So don't worry, we have it and we'll ask those questions at the end. If we can't get to your question, we'll be able to follow up with you after the event. Lastly, we do have a live chat during the duration of the webinar, so jump in and chat with your fellow IT pros. Now let's get this show started. Today's presenters are Christophe Bertrand, VP of Product Marketing, and Gary Sussman, Principal Consultant. Christophe, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here for one more great webinar. You'll see that today we'll talk about availability, or is it high availability, or what is it exactly? So this is the general topic for conversation today. Please ask us questions. I know some of you have already started, which is great, and we'll definitely try to answer as many as we can. Before I get into the details of what we mean by availability or high availability, I will just remind you of who ArcServe is. We've actually been in business for quite a bit of time in different incarnations. We started in this business as Cheyenne Software, so for those of you who remember that name, well, you've just dated yourselves. So we've been in business for quite a bit of time, but more recently we became independent again, carved out of a larger organization to become an independent vendor again. We have a global presence, many customers with our newest offering, ArcServe Unified Data Protection. Many partners. We go through a two-tier distribution model, and the benefit of being a global company is that we really get to see a lot of different use cases, and we certainly understand quite a bit around data protection, backup, recovery, and the type of availability levels that are required around the world and in different geos. So for sure, this is going to be something that you'll see has influences how we build our products and the type of features that we bring to the market. We've won many awards with our newest offering, which is a 3-year-old product, almost 4-year-old now, and literally I think we've got every meaningful award in our on our wall. So we're very proud of that. Great team, and many of our end users and partners have helped us build this solution. And what we'll talk about today is the high availability module of our ArcServe UDP portfolio. So I don't want you to be scared by my title. It has marketing in it, but I'm really a product guy. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what we have in terms of architecture for high availability, show you some deployment use cases, talk about a customer or two, and then we'll get into, we'll show you a couple of screens and a couple of cool things that we do with it. Gary will help me in this context. So first of all, availability or high availability is really about being in control of your SLAs, which is the recovery point objective, and of course, the recovery time objective. Now, something you certainly know well, but the truth is that many customers ask us, what is availability or high availability? What do you mean by that? The truth is many vendors have really made things a bit difficult to understand, because some of them call themselves availability solutions or availability something or other. And the truth is that high availability is very specific. It's really about having a very minimal interruption to a service and very little data loss, if any. So the recovery point objective is going to be low. The recovery time objective has to be also extremely low. So you have to have both dimensions close to zero, meaning very little data loss and essentially a failover in order to get to high availability. Now, it's not a bad thing to be nearly highly available. Maybe you're okay with 15 minutes RPO or 10 minutes or more, and a recovery time objective that's going to be real quick, maybe a couple of minutes. But the reality of this is that it's not necessarily high availability. And why you should care is that it turns out that high availability is a business requirement across the board now. Every business, regardless of their size, needs it. Look, I come from the enterprise space where, maybe 10 years ago, I'm not trying to date myself here, but the reality is 10 years ago in the enterprise space, everybody was paying a fortune, millions of dollars to get those highly available environments with geoclusters, with expensive replication from expensive storage arrays. Getting to that high availability status was very critical for those typically large financials or large organizations. Well, now the technology is available to you today in software format or appliance format, and it's available at a very different price point with a very easy type of features to understand and deploy. So giving you control in terms of RPO and RTO is really the game. And again, I'd like to remind you, this is driven by the business. So that's always something to remember. A couple of key market trends. I know maybe you don't care so much about the market. I just wanted to point out here that all of these trends actually influence how you're going to deploy your highly available solution and where you decide potentially not to be highly available, but to have different type of scenarios in terms of deployment. But the truth is, if you look at the third point from the top, that blue arrow icon talks about the fact that this is not about backup and restore anymore. It's really about continuous availability. So I will define something for you as we go through the next set of slides, but this notion of service level is very important to understand. It's a bit like a dial, and it really means that you have to pick your battles. Some applications deserve HA, and others probably don't need it. So you could decide to use or build your environment just like providing a service level dial where you could have a good level of backup and recovery, a better one that starts adding capabilities, maybe some snapshotting, maybe some replication to a secondary site. And then, the top of the dial here is the best, where you have continuous replication with failover and failback. And that's the one point I really wanted to talk to you about. That's what you need to get to high availability in my mind. You need to have a continuous data replication stream, and we'll explain how we do that. And you need to also have an understanding of when it is critical or necessary to fail over because something has happened. And frankly, it doesn't matter what has happened. You just know that that application has become unavailable, and therefore you need to fail over to a secondary application that is in standby, ready to go, maybe even another site. So that's what gives you the best SLA, and that's what HA is about. Anything short of that is going to be more of a snapshot combined with some failover, but that's not true high availability. This continuous replication also, it's very important to understand that what matters here is the fact that it be available for many different platforms and applications. It's one thing to go leverage maybe a hypervisor or whatever happens through APIs, but you have to do it for every critical system and application and hypervisor out there because otherwise all you have is a partial solution. Not maybe better than nothing, but I'm just saying there is a dimension of portability across the environment. So let's jump into it and talk about what HA looks like on a local site. So I'm going to show you 3 or 4 little diagrams that kind of look the same, but they really don't. And what matters here is to look at the arrows and kind of what they mean and what they do. So, in our case, our HA module is really essentially designed to be, number one, very cost effective, but more importantly, to bring to you continuous replication, which allows you to protect those business applications or critical systems or servers. And we list a few here. As a matter of fact, I think, Gary, if you don't mind later, just show us maybe an example or two of what we can configure in our environment. You'll see we have all the big names there. And then what's really cool about it is that we also, and I'll talk about that, we can, with this technology, also orchestrate automation of disaster recovery testing, which, by the way, gives you that proof point that you need to demonstrate that your environment is resilient and actually highly available. So what we do is we capture in an asynchronous fashion updates on the primary site, which will be on the left-hand side. As you can see, it can be a Windows or a server. It could be a file server, it doesn't really matter. We have quite an extensive supported list of supported platforms. And then we take that, and essentially we take that IO, replicate it asynchronously, which gives us the advantage of not having to wait for an acknowledgement on the other side. So we can go copy that over very long distances and not have to worry about latency, okay? So we take that, we copy it to a secondary site or secondary server locally, or a replica ready to go. And should we detect that something has gone wrong, in this case with this Windows server, then we can immediately, because of our monitoring capabilities, decide to fail over and then maybe later also fail back. And that's really cool because this solution allows for automation of failback, including number of networking components and configurations, which typically tends to be a real pain. So that's the local example. In this case, you would have your standby replica on site. Now that's great, but that's not necessarily the best solution, because if you lose your site physically for whatever reason, or it becomes unavailable, or power outage, you've been hacked by a ransomware and they've taken down your network. I mean, you can think of many different things. Unfortunately, in that case, you would lose everything, not be able to fail over. So should you need to do that, the best option always is for disaster recovery is to have a remote site. Now, distance matters because it creates latency, but with current technologies, you can really go cross-country very easily. Of course, there's a cost to it, so you have to factor that in. But fundamentally, it gives you the ability to have that standby replica on a secondary site that is not going to be your primary physical site. Could be a partner, could be a service provider, could be, you have many options because it's asynchronous replication again. And by the way, in that process, we also throw in some nice WAN optimization capabilities. So we try to keep it very efficient on the bandwidth. So the other point is, once you do continuous replication, the question is, well, hang on, when I recover, what do I recover? Where do I recover? And we can literally rewind, like a clock, your environment based on what you think the right time is. So let's say that server had an issue, then it failed, and we picked it up, we failed over. You may ask yourself, well, hang on, where do I want to restart this thing? Do I want to restart when it failed? Do I want to restart 2 minutes before? So sometimes your recovery point objective, your recovery time objective will require for you to ask yourself a few questions. But your recovery point objective will be good to pretty much the last I/O that went through. Of course, because we have this distance and this latency, I will say, you know, the RPO is probably under a minute, but can be very close to zero. Okay, so that's a real benefit. Again, better than many other traditional backup processes. This is continuous data protection, and it really allows us to get to those level of services I was describing. So that's the example, again, with the remote site. And then you could really create what we call continuous availability, which is combining both. And that's very doable. Our solution is designed for that. Local failover, failback, if something goes wrong, and if it goes really, really bad, really poorly, something has happened to your primary site, well, now at that point, you can leverage that distant site, your disaster recovery site, for failover. And it gets better because we can, as I said, not only rewind to a specific point, and by the way, there's a screenshot here, I'm sure that Gary will show you a couple more things, but we can also do this in the cloud, which, of course, you are asking yourselves, why isn't he talking about the cloud? Everybody is these days. So we support this either in a private cloud setting, but we also support this in a public cloud environment. So again, here, the same concepts apply by having this standby replica. So in a public cloud environment, you would do that in AWS. That's what we support EC2. Okay. Now, I talked about a short recovery, which is a great capability. And a short recovery is this automation of disaster recovery testing, which gives you, at the end of the day, a report that says, look, we tried to recover this application as part of our test. So what we're going to do with our solution is we're going to spin a VM that's going to be non-production, obviously, so we don't interrupt your production. At any point in time, production keeps on going. You're just essentially going to test against that recovery against a VM and to see how long it takes. What's nice about doing that is not only does it give you a real sense of how long it takes you to get back on your feet, it also gives you practice. And now you may think, okay, this looks complicated. Well, it's not. It's pretty automated. A lot of the steps have been automated for you, so you can essentially get that done on a regular basis, get that report, share that report with management. Maybe you depend on some business line owner who wants to know, hey, how quickly could we get back on our feet should something happen? How much am I really impeding the business here potentially by not investing in this? How much am I putting on the line if I don't have this capability? And conversely, hey, it's an investment. This is what I can get for you. I can get you back on your feet in X amount of time with X amount of data loss. Let's talk about that. So again, all of these examples, while they are actually based on some pretty advanced technology, they're really about understanding the IT service level you want to implement and the business requirements that go with it. So that's it for a short recovery, by the way. We love this feature so much, we made it our tagline at ArcServe, a short recovery, and we have a registered trademark even on it. So it goes to tell you, it shows you essentially how we've been doing this for many years, and we've been innovating. I will also say that we keep innovating. We believe that this technology is very, very critical, not only to us as a business, but to our customers. We're hearing it every day. Again, we're dealing with mid-market customers, not the largest of enterprises, and we really want to keep providing these solutions with the best innovation in it, and definitely a big axis in terms of investments for us. So here's an example of a customer that uses our high availability module, which is really replication and high availability. This customer essentially is an English customer. They have, and we have customers like this all over the world. So in this case, that's the UK example. 5,000 customers, 30 locations, and they were really dealing with complexity when it came to recovery management, multiple products. And what it created for them was a very incoherent recovery time objective and recovery point objective. So they were able, with this solution that uses, again, the continuous data replication component and the HA piece, to go from backup windows that took 14 hours. Again, there was a variety of stuff going on there, to 3 hours, only 3 hours. So that's a pretty short window when you think about 30 locations and the configuration they had here. Very decentralized enterprise. And more importantly, the critical systems and the data could be recovered in less than 15 minutes. Actually, it's like much less than 15 minutes now with no data loss, which was a very important factor for them. So think about that. That's a big deal. No data loss, and in 15 minutes you're back in business. That's a pretty good achievement. Many people would sign up for this every day, but not many can deliver it. And the reason why you can't is because with traditional backup and recovery, you're likely going to be at least 15 minutes behind in terms of data loss, maybe more. So it's important to have this continuous replication capability. And again, having it available on multiple systems, multiple platforms, not just one, is very important, because many systems, many applications are tied together, and they need to be at the same moment in time, the same point in time when you recover them for the whole thing to work and to be coherent. So another fringe benefit is that they got some operational efficiencies out of it and freed up some time, 5 hours every day across the business, which I'm sure they're spending on SpiceWorks. All right, so with this, what I'd like to do is now leave the floor to Gary Sussman, who's going to show you our beautiful interface.
Excellent. Do you see my screen okay? Just make sure that
it's working just fine. Just fine.
Awesome.
Hey, what are you showing us here, Gary?
Thank you for that introduction to the Prava. So yes, what we're going to do here is show you a brief demonstration on the technology, pretty much answer all your questions that you have so you know how the product runs. First thing you'll notice, we're web-based, so you can manage this product anywhere, including on mobile devices. The first component that we normally deploy is the control service. The control service is how we manage our environment. This could be any Windows server. And again, you can get access to the solution from any web browser. The control service provides a web interface to manage the whole operation of this solution. As you can see, we could see all of our hosts, what's running as far as scenarios. We also can manage reports from here as well. What we'll now do is show you our scenario management screen. The scenario management is how we create our different scenarios that we're looking to protect. Our scenario management screen allows us to manage deployment of our agents, allows us to create our different scenarios, and also obviously manage the whole managed solution. As you can see, I have already one scenario created. On the left, you can see my active machine. On the right is my standby machine. A couple of things we can do with this technology is create different scenarios. We have three capabilities. We can do file server, application server, and also full system. File server is exactly that. We have tons of files, terminal servers, whatever it may be. We can look at protection of that interface. We also are application aware, as you can see. We support pretty much any Windows application, Hyper-V from a host perspective, applications such as SharePoint, SQL, even our own manager can be made highly available. vCenter is a great option for those that have needs to protect your vCenter environment. So lots of flexibility when it comes to application. Finally, we have a custom application. So we can manage specific services. So if there's a third-party application that you want to achieve this level of protection, that's also possible. I would say 80% of the time people choose our full system. Our full system not only protects the apps, not only protects the files, also protects the operating systems as well. So you don't need to do any downtime if you have to patch. Let's say there's a new version of SQL. You'll have to patch both sides, which obviously will cause downtime. Well, going at the full system way, we can circumvent any patches or any updates that's needed on both ends. So just keep that in mind. 3 levels of scenarios: file, application, and full system. Speaking of which, I have a full system scenario created already. As you can see, I'm using a vSphere server. One of the recommendations for full system is that the replica has to be a host of some kind. We'll talk about what we support, but in this scenario, as you can see, I have an active Windows machine being replicated real time to this VMware host acting as an appliance. Basically, we have a VM with our engine on the replica taking on these changes, synchronizing, and so at any moment, as you can see, it's encrypted, and we have a time is alive to make sure that if anything goes wrong, that VM can be ready and willing to come online, and obviously the last block of data is available rather than from a backup like typical solutions. Also, you'll notice the data is synced exactly as such, so you can see what data changed with a sense. You can see how it matches exactly. So as things are changing in I/O, this is how we're achieving this real-time protection. We're much higher in the application stack. We're able to capture data in real time in I/O, regardless of what type of disk. So we're hardware agnostic. Excuse me. So as you can see, we can create different scenarios. We can also deploy our agents. We have a simple installer that we can install our agents if need be. Let's create a similar scenario. We'll do this time, it's the VMware, we use Hyper-V. So as you can see, I can easily select my full system and select HA. Now keep in mind, the product can also just do replication. If you want to do one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-one, replication is a great feature for just DR. But there's no failover with replication, so keep that in mind. If you want the failover to occur either manual or automatically, the solution will provide all the redirection, but you must ensure you choose HA, obviously. Also, as we mentioned earlier, extreme recovery is provided if need be. So we can automatically or manual test that replica. This is our key feature. Unlike other competitors, you have to stop replication to test your remote side, which causes downtime, especially having to resynchronize afterwards. Not with our product. Our integrity testing can ensure that we can basically provide peace of mind and do the testing for you without stopping replication. As you can see, we can now give the snare a name. And we can now select our source. In this scenario, I am going to pick a VM from my VMware. So we'll go ahead and pick VM1 here, as you can see. So we're choosing this server that we're going to act as our master. So we'll go ahead and select that VM1 from the list, from that VMware host. And as you can see, now we can select another host or Amazon as well. So we can directly interface with Amazon, by the way. So if you have different services, AWS, EC2, EBS storage, you can also utilize this to protect and utilize that AWS as a destination as well. So either destination or source, we can easily find different targets in different environments. All we need to understand is we have, obviously, from a firewall perspective, as you can see, a port open. By default, we use 25,000. So as you can see in my example today, we're going to now choose a Hyper-V server. We can also deploy agents before, or we can do it while we create the snare, which we'll do just now. So as you can see, we have everything set and ready. We've installed our agents, engines. If not, we can do the install. You can see there's an install button at the bottom. So we're already set to go with this technology. So as you can see, it's a very easy wizard approach. We're almost halfway through the process. The next step, now that we have our source and our full system hosts, we now can choose what we need to protect. This is where it finds, since we're doing full system, obviously we want to protect from a volume perspective. As you can see also, we can exclude drives if need be. So if we don't want certain drives like a temp volume, we can enable or just protect everything. The choice is yours. So now we have our source. Next step is to qualify the replica resource. So immediately it understands our environment from my host perspective. We now can enable some attributes. Replication is always online, but we can provide scheduled and periodic. For HA, obviously I would recommend online so you have the most up-to-date data. But if you're doing a DR scenario with replication, we can do that on a schedule or on a periodic basis. The choice is yours in how we replicate the data. We also have different event notifications, reporting aspects. So very simple to implement the solutions. As you can see, we're almost done with this wizard. The next step is qualifying our attributes as far as the network. So we're going to maintain the network setting from the host, the source that we have. But again, we can customize our environment if need be. Next, you'll notice that we have a couple of things we can now set up. Well, you'll notice the first thing is a spool directory. We have a spool directory on both sides to provide sort of a buffer in case there's any mix-up or issues in the environment, latency, power issues. We can spool either side to help us, again, perform the best latency and performance and efficiency with the replication. Also provided is I/O. So if you want to throttle on a certain time, maybe during hours of the day, or from a bandwidth perspective, we can also limit so that we're not taking up the WAN pipe if need be on a certain hour or time frame. Encryption is also available. So those that need to encrypt data during transfer obviously are supported, as well as compression both during and after replication. So keep that in mind. Lots of capabilities to help compress encrypted data and throttle if need be. We also have event notification by email, writing to log events. We have reports that we can handle. And as far as the VM that's created, we can identify what that source or that replica resource should be. So make sure that you have enough resources identified so that you have, obviously, the most efficient DR. One also thing we can provide is our CDP. We called this earlier our data rewind, if you recall. This allows us to basically keep the replicated data in the time frame that we decide. So that if there is an infection that gets replicated, we can then rewind the data back. So if an infection happened at 12:05, we can probably go to 12:04, rewind the data back. It's really that efficient. We can even indicate how many snapshots to keep. So we have the capability to not only make sure that the data is valid, we can assure by scheduling that test. So let's say every Saturday, we can provide a test, again, with the product. We can do this without a need to stop the replication. Our assured recovery DR testing can be turned on and off very, very easily. Upon the successful test, we can create different opportunities, scripting, or even creating a snapshot so that we can utilize that snapshot at a previous point in time. So let's say I can keep 2 snapshots to not only reflect to get granular restores if I need to. Lots of capabilities from our recovery approach, our data rewind. We can keep how many bookmarks to count. Basically, it's related to storage and how much time you want to keep. And so it's really easy, again, from the replica side, also events and also reports as well. Finally, since we have HA, we have to keep account of that switchover properties. Depending on the network, we can set up different types of redirection methods. This product is Active Directory aware, as you can see. So we have many different methods. Most popular is redirection of DNS. Specifically, if you have different subnets, as long as you have dynamic updates available, we can, again, manipulate the redirection when it comes time to failover. So redirection, we can take care of, again, with our HA product. If you buy just replication, this is, again, eliminated. So just keep that in mind. We also can specify the timeout. So right now, default, every 30 seconds, we're, again, pinging and making sure that server is available. In event, we find, discover something goes wrong. We can then fail over. Default is 5 minutes, but you can change these values if you wish. We also have other scripting and other capabilities you can perform if a failover happens. And that's pretty much it in a setup in the HA environment. The last step is then to tell the product whether you want the switchover to be initiated automatically or manually. It's totally up to you. And that's it. This is how we perform HA scenario using, in this case, Hyper-V environment. So one thing I forgot to do was choose the network card. So let's do so. Let's utilize my network settings, maintaining what we had, and that should be all that we need. Now we have 2 scenarios. You'll see based on this view here, will populate as such, and we can now run the product when need be. That's how easy the product is set up. I see I have a certain error here, but for the sake of time, we'll just bypass it for now and work on what we had before. So as you can see in my previous setup, what we did previous is all accounted for. We also can manage services, which is another important feature. So if you have any services that you want to manage From an RPO standpoint, we can do such. When services fail, that's another indication for failover. So again, this is how we can provide the capability depending on your environment. Again, we can do full system, but we also do different applications. So depending on your environment, we give you the flexibility with technology. We also have capabilities with Amazon. So again, you can add your Amazon EC2 solutions as well with this technology. Obviously, you need to have the resource available, put in your cloud account no matter what region. And again, you can utilize this as a destination and resource. We also can manage the snapshot view. So as we do our shoot recovery, we can maintain different snapshots that we can then mount and get at if need be. So not only can we provide replication DR, but we can manage snapshots at the replica during the DR test, which is a perfect time. We also can manage the installation of the product. So if you have complex environments, you can easily manage installing the product very, very easily. Finally, we have the capability of helping you manage maintenance on your servers. Rather than turning off replication, which then you have the resynchronization, this product has a way to shut down your servers gracefully, making sure replication is stopped, ceased, nothing is in spool directory, and then gives you a safe time to then reboot the machine. Once this machine is rebooted, you then will start replication where it left off. So there's no need to do a resynchronization with this process. Keep that in mind. We can provide a lot of capabilities. So with that, that's about it for this demonstration. Again, this provides everything you need to provide real-time protection of any type of system, physical, virtual, Windows, Linux, Unix. It safely provides, everything you need to provide this real-time protection and failover. And we provide this in a simple web-based manager. That ends my demonstration. We now have time for questions, I do believe.
Awesome presentation, Christophe and Gary. We do have some great questions that have come through, so let's go ahead and get some of those answered. All right, first question. Can this be hosted on-prem or is it engineered for the cloud?
Either or. We can do both on-prem. This is really lightweight as far as resources, so people have used it in the cloud. And again, we can directly connect to Amazon AWS as well. So lots of flexibility. We also have role-based management, so if you want to do multi-tenancy as an MSP, we have that capability as well. So lots of good solutions and capabilities with this.
Awesome, thanks. Next question, how does constant backup affect performance?
Oh, most definitely. Typically when you do backup, we have to have an agent or some type of snapshot. Typically that does take some resources, so that's something to definitely consider the environment that you're trying to protect. Make sure you have enough resources to perform the backups. This solution is really lightweight, as I said. The engine is really efficient to capture data in real time, so it's a lot more efficient than most solutions today.
Gotcha, great. The next question here, can ArcServe work with Amazon S3 backups as a hybrid?
ArcServe can. With our backup product, we can directly, after a backup, do a copy or a file or the whole recovery point to S3. With this technology, we need obviously more of a resource, CPU, storage. So we can't directly integrate with S3, obviously, with this. We need Amazon resource like AWS. So we can integrate with backups with S3, but with this, we need, again, CPU memory storage. So that's how we integrate with AWS one more time.
Wonderful. And how would you say your replication process is better than the hypervisor-based replication products, VMware or Hyper-V?
Yes, very, very good question. Our product uses a mini filter driver, sort of like your antivirus. It sits very, very high in the stack, so that's how we can achieve this I/O and perfection in I/O. As you're typing, we're actually capturing those changes. A lot of those other users are more lower in the stack, Even other vendors are even further lower in stack in the hardware, like SRM or hardware-based snapshots. So that's our bread and butter, is that we're much more higher in stack than other solution providers and hardware vendors today.
Okay, awesome. And can your system be expanded with hardware that isn't yours?
Oh, most definitely. Because we're higher in the stack, we're hardware agnostic. You have SAN on one side, NAS on the other side. So this is the flexibility of the solution. We're hardware agnostic, gives you the flexibility to use whatever you need. Typically, the replica is lacking resources, so it doesn't have to be the exact same as far as configuration as the master. And with the full system scenario, you can really basically use any host and whatever that host can provide.
Very cool. Next question here, what is the minimum number of hosts to make it technology? I cannot say that right now. Technology. I can't say that word today.
It's
and
fine.
Technologically.
That is sorry about that.
No worries. I mean, servers pretty much unlimited. It really depends on amount of data you're transferring, the pipe. As far as the control service, it needs 4 CPUs, minimum 16 gigs of RAM. So running a product doesn't take much, and the engine itself is a lightweight itself. So not much as far as resource, and we create as many scenarios as you want, allowing obviously the database that you utilize.
Yeah, if I may add to this, I think to the economically piece of it, technologically and economically, there's no minimum in terms of how many systems you want to protect. It's really your call, and that goes back to the economics. If you have a mission critical system or application where if it fails or becomes unavailable, you're essentially losing margin, profit, revenue, you name it, quickly, and it's going to be a curve that's going to sort of get steeper and steeper, right? Because it's critical to you. Then you have your answer. That cost, if you will, that potential loss expectancy, really makes for the economic use case. It's your cost of lost data and your cost of unavailability. So that's the economic answer. I know it's a bit vague in a sense, but just think of it as opportunity cost of not being in business.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight. We have another question here that says, for high availability, are you seeing more of a trend towards network infrastructure or server host availability?
Actually, both, because both are subject to failures. So with this product, as you can see, I just stopped the services. It will now fail over. So in many different environments, there's many different pieces that you have to consider. So this takes care of both from a hardware perspective, network perspective. That spool size, spool, you can see also aids, and so we can buffer the replication because of latency. So the product is capable of providing all this in one.
Great. And what automation tooling, if any, is supported for adding new services you want to manage?
Don't think we have any. We do have integrations with like RMM tools from a service perspective. PowerShell is another great thing we can provide. So if this is like a third-party integration type of question, we do have some capabilities with this as well.
Gotcha. Wonderful. And this might be a question for both of you. Are you saying that availability is more important than recoverability?
And they're both important. Recoverability tells you whether, if I understand the question, whether you can actually recover the data. That's good, but how current is it, number one? And number two, how much time is it going to take you to recover? So I would say availability is a higher state, or high availability is a higher state of protection than traditional backup, for example. That's really the best service level you can get.
Awesome. And next question, let me see here. Is it OS independent?
Yes, we support many operating systems. You just have to license it appropriately. Obviously, based on the application, what you want to protect. Both sides should be similar. If it's an application scenario, if it's obviously full system, we're doing a VM on the replica, so that doesn't matter. So we have lots of flexibility, not only Windows, but we have a long list of Unix, AIX, Solaris, and also Linux, SLES, OES, stuff like that.
Wonderful. And we actually have a clarification on that last question. So they say for availability versus recoverability, where should the money be spent? If that makes
Well, so critical,
sense.
again, go back to the critical applications, right? And that tells you where the money should be spent. So in other words, depending on, with this solution, by the way, it's very price and cost effective. Of course, you have to take into account everything, the server, the storage, the bandwidth, etc. But to this point, if you believe that you have a mission critical system, you probably want the best level of protection. That's what we propose here. If you have systems where you can really take an elongated recovery time and recovery point, then you can go with another type of protection, maybe based on snapshots or more traditional backups, where you won't be spending operationally as much as you might with this solution. Although, again, for critical data and the efficiencies we've built in, it's not going to be that much more expensive to be fully protected.
Wonderful. Thank you for adding on to that for us. Next question here is, can you throttle bandwidth used by synchronization?
Most definitely. As you saw, we can bandwidth follow without any issue. It's just a simple task you could do in the properties. We could do all this from I/O perspective as well on the source side. So depending on what day, hour, that's definitely a feature with the solution.
Awesome.
Just real quick, I just did a failover. As you can see in my VMware, that VM is now powered on, failed over successfully using the appliance. So this is exactly what the product is intended to do. I just want to refresh on that.
Wonderful, thank you. And next question here, what is the difference between snapshots and continuous replication?
Oh, great. Great concept. Typically, a snapshot is a point in time done by an agent or volume share copy. So that really determines your RPO. If you can only do it so much, obviously anything less than that is an issue. So real time doesn't need a snapshot. It's happening in real time. We're capturing these changes after synchronization, which we never really discussed. But before replication, the data has to be synchronized between a master and a replica. We could do this, at the file level, block level, or volume level. But after that point, it's now capturing data in real time. So that's the difference. We're going to reduce your RPO and RTO because of that with our HA module here.
Very cool. And what applications do you support?
Let me bring up the list. Pretty much anything out there. So again, when we create our scenarios, we could do a full system. I would say, again, 80% of the time, people just want the whole data. And utilizing a host makes it very easy. You don't have to have the server, OS, patch. But as far as applications, if you just want to replicate or HA that, as you can see, we support pretty much anything Windows, including some other environments as well. It's a great question.
Cool. So last question here for now. Also, can the appliances, support all replication and HA functionality?
Yes. Our UDP 8000 series appliances have an opportunity to upgrade to our Premium Plus license, which will include this feature. So not only can you do, your image-based backups, you now can provide RHA, so the best of both worlds, as you mentioned, snapshot and real time.
Awesome. We are out of questions for now, so do either of you have any last words for our audience?
I would just say that this is used, again, for those that need the strictest as far as RPO and RTOs, where a backup solution or clustering or hardware snapshot doesn't cut it because, again, we're high in the stack with the software and application that we can provide, again, real-time replication, or you can add the failover component with HA. So lots of flexibility. Technology is included, like the CDP and the shared recovery. These are some of our competitive differences and numerous of applications and operating systems we support.
Great. Christoph, you have any last words?
Yeah, I would just say we talked a lot about failover, but there's also failback, and think about what are the right things to do to fail back, and this is an area where we can also help. Although we can show you exactly here, we have a bunch of automation built in, and typically what we've heard is that for many of you, the main problem is when something bad happens, it's not so much the storage or the software or the applications. I mean, that's bad enough. It's really all the networking stuff that needs to happen in order to be able to connect that cloud or to fail over gracefully and to get stuff back when you're done. So these are areas that we can help with.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I do want to remind everyone that if your question wasn't addressed, someone will be able to follow up with you. Also, if you had to step out or if you missed any part of today's presentation, you will be receiving an email in a few days with the link to view the webinar on demand. Special thanks to ArcServe for creating this content and sponsoring the event. Also, huge thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in today. We hope to see you back soon for another SpiceWorks Partner webinar, but until then, stay safe and keep it spicy.